Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tower Talk, a God Roll Radio production. My name is Sax, and I'm joined tonight in the tower with our resident warlock extraordinaire, Spartan. How you doing, man?
Good. I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm good, man. We're fighting to be here tonight. So pull back the curtains a little bit. We had some technical difficulties, but we're excited to be here. I appreciate you being flexible, and we appreciate you guys listening. So some housekeeping for you guys real quick. You may remember we recorded our first episode of God Roll Radio back in October of last year, and we put that live on the Force to Pod feed. However, from this point on, all God Roll Radio episodes will be live on the Sax Plays Games YouTube channel on its own dedicated podcast feed. And Tower Talk, this is my dedicated Destiny show. It's going to be shot live in the Sol system, and I will interview Guardians like Spartan, or maybe even you someday, so we can talk all things Destiny. So if you would, a lot of you guys have already liked and subscribed to the Force to Pod feeds, but if you would like the dedicated Destiny content, would you like and subscribe this show wherever you're listening? That would be great. And so let's look ahead real quick. Tonight we're going to talk about a few things. First, I want to recap the raid marathon that we had just a few weeks ago. I kind of give a breakdown and our thoughts on that. Next, Spartan and I want to talk about episode Heresy, our way too early thoughts, how this episode, compares, contrasts to the other episodes we've had, and our expectations moving forward. We want to talk about Vaulted Glass, all the weapons getting a rework and kind of breathe new life into that. And finally, we want to discuss Trials of Osiris and the rework that we've had for that. So, hope you guys can find something that interests you. Hopefully all of it interests you. But if something in particular is more of interest for you, you can jump around using the timestamps in the description below. We will have those for you, and we will segment the show accordingly. I want to start here in the tower and just recap the Force to Wipe raid marathon real quick for you guys. So for those of you who don't know, the first weekend of February, we held a D2 raid marathon with our clan Force to Wipe. The goal was to complete all 9 raids that are currently available in Destiny 2. Rest in peace, Crown of Sorrow, Leviathan, so on and so forth. And we wanted to do it with as many unique guardians as possible. So this was the first time we've done this. But this was in direct response to the Force to Wipe survey we did right at the beginning of the year. Thank you so much to everyone who responded to that, gave their thoughts, their opinions, and shared their concerns about, hey, we would like to do more Destiny-oriented things in the game and kind of get together more. So this was a direct response, and I feel personally that it was a huge success. We had 31 unique Guardians who participated this year, and we finished our final raid, Salvation's Edge, with 5 minutes left on Sunday, which was February 2nd, Eastern time, so it would have been 11:55 p.m. Eastern. However, it just felt great. We were able to get our buddy Lou Evo through his first full run of Salvation's Edge, and Judy actually ended up getting Euphony in that run as well. So that was pretty cool. So Spartan, what were your thoughts? How'd you feel about the raid marathon, and what raids did you participate in this year?
Yeah, I thought it went great. Thanks once again for scheduling all that stuff. I know it's not the easiest thing in the world.
No, it is not.
But I was in Root of Nightmares and Salvation's Edge, I believe, and both are great. I mean, I have a soft spot for Ron just because it was one of the first day ones I completed. And then, of course, Salvation's Edge being the sort of capstone raid. But yeah, I had a great time. I heard a lot of people who said they had a great time, and I think it all went great.
Yeah, I love to hear that because, a lot of the responses we got from the survey were, hey, we love Destiny, we love Force to Wipe, but we are concerned about the future of both because we're so dependent on Destiny. And I found a lot of people when I was reaching out to them about scheduling this or just getting people to respond to the survey, I found a lot of people were suggesting and saying things are in low places and I don't know what to do and the game's not really fun right now. I don't really want to play. And I just kind of found myself saying over and over again, we got to kind of create our own fun. We just got to find a way to engage the game with meet it where it is, and if we want to do that. And so not everyone's going to do that. People are going to take breaks from Destiny, things of that sort. And I think that's perfectly fine. But I think us being able to create our own fun, find ways to creatively freshen up these old raids together as a clan. And then also, we've put a lot of time and effort into teaching these raids to people who maybe weren't around when these all were the primary pinnacle every week raids. they weren't playing when Garden of Salvation came out and it was raidable every single week for pinnacle drops, you know, things of that sort. And so as they've rotated through, they've done these weapon refreshes. You know, we're going to talk about VOG here in a little bit. It's just the idea that we were able to flex those muscles that we've developed over, I mean, I think we've probably done 4, 5, 6, maybe full rotations over the last year and a half of, you know, full sweeps of, okay, we're going to run through every single raid over however many weeks it takes for them to come out, and we're going to get new people through. We even did a whole portion where we were getting people through with their getting chances right at the raid exotic. So we were just farming. I was grabbing the checkpoint for the final boss, and then we were farming and doing that. And so I'm very proud of the work we've done there. And this was just a great way to flex those muscles and kind of show off and show everyone like, hey, we as a clan, we're pretty damn good at this game. And we have good experience. And so I appreciate everyone who was a part of it. And so I don't have much else to say about that. So I say, let's go ahead and take a quick break. And then we're going to come back live on location in the Dreadnought to talk about episode Heresy and our way too early thoughts. All right, we are back live from the Dreadnought. Man, these views every time, they just get me. Just something so sweet about the nostalgia of being back in Saturn's orbit and seeing just the destruction that took place in the battle between the Dreadnought and the Awoken back in Destiny 1. So if you've not seen that trailer, that cutscene, even Spartan, I don't know if you remember that in particular when they put that trailer out. But if you've not seen that recently, you should definitely go back and watch that, because that is an awesome thing to see how Marasov and her troops took in some incredibly damaging blows, or they gave damaging blows to the Dreadnought there. So anyways, we just wanted to talk and touch base on what, you know, our thoughts, our feelings, our too early opinions on episode Heresy. You know, we just started week 3, if I'm correct. It's just so much has been packed in, because we had the new dungeon release, and then we had the shadow drop of the new exotic mission, and then today I know Iron Banner began. So we're kind of time warped because of our technical difficulties. Later on, we're going to be coming live from the Lighthouse, which was last week, but that's fine. So my thoughts, top level thoughts, and then Spartan, I'll let you dive a little deeper, is episode Heresy is fulfilling the promise and the intrigue that Bungie laid out for us with the episode format. And so they said, hey, we want to explore different portions of the solar system that aren't necessarily directly tied to the Witness and the impending darkness invasion, and the pyramid ships are coming. You know, this feels wholly unique. And yes, it's tied directly to the echoes that were created between the clash, you know, of the Witness and the Traveler and their powers. But this is a fresh perspective that was sorely missed with Echoes and episode Revenant, the last two. So what are your thoughts, Spartan, on the location piece? You know, how are you feeling about the weapons? And then what are your hopes for the continuation of this episode? You know, and what do you think they need to do to kind of keep us engaged?
Yeah. So far, I've really enjoyed it. I mean, you know, obviously there's the nostalgia aspect of being back on the Dreadnought. You know, when I first started playing Destiny, when the Taken King came out in Destiny 1. So, you know, that's a big part of it, at least for me. And I've really enjoyed the Nether as a seasonal event. I feel like they tend to go a while with sort of samey feeling seasonal events, but every once in a while they'll drop a season, or I guess an episode as they're called now, with just a great event. And I think this is one of them. It's definitely up there with some of the past greats. Been super enjoying that. You know, the story, I've never been the most involved in like the season to season story. I'll still play the missions and everything, but I'm not like super invested necessarily. But this one's been good so far. Like you said, I like how it's sort of tying in, but not directly to the whole final shape thing. And yeah, overall, so far so good. We'll see how they keep it going. I feel like if they can keep the momentum going, it'll be one of the better seasons/episodes that they've come out with in the last few years.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the idea of, hey, we're going to use, I think that there's something novel about the idea of like, we cooked in the past. Like the Dreadnought is an incredible concept. It's an incredible location, an incredible execution on story from a story perspective when Destiny was sorely lacking and only known in the gaming space for having great shooting with no story substance whatsoever, right? Like the D1 vanilla campaign came out and it just fell flat from a story perspective. And honestly, if Vaulted Glass hadn't been as good as it was, we probably wouldn't be standing here today, playing Destiny 2 so many years later and doing all this. And so it was a series of, there's always luck involved, right? Like things hitting at the right time, the right people, the right streamers seeing it and pushing it, and the right marketing campaigns, but also the vision, like just coming together so clearly as far as, hey, we're going to see the big bad, right? We had just killed Crota in Crota's End, and then like, okay, his daddy's here, and like, let's see what this culminates into. And then them now being able to say, hey, like this is something that's loved. It would be easy to say, oh, it's just nostalgia baiting, like we're just gonna take them back and it's very base level, things of that sort. But they've come through, and then not to get into any spoilers, but the story beat of this week in particular, week 3, is one of the strongest weeks of episode story, seasonal or episodic story that they've ever given us. And it's so impressive. I'm just like, man, how did we swing and miss and fall on our face so much in Echoes and in Revenant?
Yeah,
to do that. And so, I'm looking forward with expectation. I am hoping desperately we have, and again, these are our way too early thoughts, opinions, desires for this episode. There have been rumors and not necessarily leaks, that's not the right way to say it, but if you logged in on the first day and went to the season pass page, I actually am not sure if it's still on there, but I know that it had an estimated time window that this season was going to be active, or this episode was going to be active, and it went somewhere towards the end of, if I remember correctly, like end of June, early July, to how long this was going to be. So this was by far going to be the longest episode leading into whatever's next. My way too early hope is that we may get some sort of Into the Light 2.0 type feeling or type event where maybe we get a Pantheon type revamp, or maybe we get something of that sort that would continue us on. Maybe they could do an Onslaught weapon refresh, something of that sort, give us some nuance there. But so far, so good with episode Heresy. Let's talk real briefly here about the Nether activity and our thoughts on the healing. Spartan, I'll let you go first. What are your thoughts on the healing, the roguelite elements, things of that sort in the Nether?
Yeah, so when it first came out, I felt like there wasn't quite enough ways of getting health back. And I think after these first couple weeks, they made a couple tweaks to, for example, how much health the orbs give back, that kind of thing. And I think it's in a pretty good spot right now. I've heard some people in the community say they don't love not being able to regen health the typical way, but I think it's different and unique enough and is not detrimental to the gameplay. It forces you to play a little bit differently, but I think it's a good thing. And I think it makes it really interesting. Like you said, the whole roguelite elements.
Yeah, I would agree. I understand where people are coming from if they say, hey, we've come to understand and know what these seasonal activities would be. However, a lot of the opinions and the issues that people raised at various points were, maybe they were early on, like you said, there were some healing effects that were bugged, not working. There were some healing effects that were working as intended, and there were some that were just straight up broken. And they were like Knockout on Titan was working fully, and there were no issues with that. It's one of those things where, I think that as they balance it, as they rework some things, honestly, the nimble game development side of things would go a long way for them. Because it feels like so often they're having to be reactive to issues that pop up and rear their ugly head, and they can't be proactive and be like, hey, we've tested this, we see, and I guess it's still reactive in the nature where, like, hey, people, when you get millions of people playing something across the world, it doesn't matter how much game testing you do internally. you're immediately going to find bugs. Things are going to break. Things are not going to work as expected. However, when you are not fighting from a place of like, oh my gosh, like everything, everything's on fire. I won't say, the plane's crashing, because that's not good in this day and age. It's a little too relevant. But this ship is going down, and we don't understand what to do. There's water coming on board. We got to get this off. When you're not fighting from that place and your back's not against the wall all the time, you can be reactive as a game dev, and you can say, hey, like, okay, we hear you. We don't necessarily fully agree, but hey, let's tweak it. Let's find a middle ground. Let's find a creative way to solve this, instead of what they've had to do oftentimes, which is, okay, we're just going to disable these things. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to turn them off for basically the whole season, because it's easier for us to do that than to try to patch this. So I think the Nether is a very good activity. I definitely think it stands up there with things like the coil. Maybe not the heights that Menagerie reached when it did. However, I have seen some conversation on, where do we come down with the Nether sticking around? Is there a potential where the Dreadnought could stick around? I would love if it did. I just don't know. I don't know how that would work. And so, fingers crossed. We'll see if it does. But that was a great conversation about episode Heresy. But let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the Vaulted Glass weapon rework. And we're back live from Venus. Now we're outside the Vaulted Glass because we want to talk all about the VOG weapon rework, how it feels to come back to Vaulted Glass, and just all things VOG real quick. So I have a special place for VOG in my heart. This was not a raid that I was super familiar with when it came back to Destiny 2. I had only done it in D1 one time, and I really didn't know what I was doing. And so that's just where I was at the time. As we sit right this second, I've cleared a Vaulted Glass 105 times, with 102 of them being on normal and 3 on master. So that's kind of funny. And then since I'm here, I'll look for Spartan as well. We're sitting at 31 full clears. A lot of Sherpas in there. 28 normal, 3 master. But I know you did Vaulted Glass from D1. Is that correct?
Yeah. I didn't complete very many raids in Destiny 1. I didn't really start raiding heavily until Beyond Light. But yes, Vault of Glass is one of the ones that I did.
Gotcha. So I think it's easy to state, or I guess it's fair to state, that Vaulted Glass is something that, for both of us has a special place in our heart. It's something that it's pretty easy to get people convinced to be like, hey, let's go run a VOG real quick. Let's hop in. And so I know for me, that's how it is. So the idea that these weapons would come back with a vengeance and have the ability to be brought to the top of the meta, I think that's great game development from Bungie's perspective, right? They've already cooked up these weapons, and it's saying, hey, let's go and breathe new life into these fan favorites, and let's juice up weapons that were underperforming, so it was kind of a laughable picks. The two that really come to mind for me, first would be Praedyth's Revenge, the kinetic sniper, rapid fire sniper. And then second would be Hezen's Vengeance, the rocket launcher. And so I can't remember, is that an aggressive frame rocket launcher? Do you remember?
I believe so. I'll look it up really quick.
So while you do that, I just want to let's talk about let's talk about Praedyth's Revenge real quick. So that being in the same slot as the Supremacy, which was a sniper that, was from D1 as well, but brought the Supremacy when Last Wish got its rework, that really breathed new life into that weapon as well, with things like 4 times the charm and rewind rounds. You had kinetic trimmers on there. I use a lot of rewind rounds, kinetic trimmers for like GMs or raid bosses that are, far off in the distance when you're doing that, and you just kind of want to turn your brain off. I remember using it a lot for Warlord's Ruin for the final boss there. And so I haven't gotten a craftable version of Praedyth's Revenge, but I kind of like that model. I don't know if I like it better than Supremacy, but I'm looking forward to getting that. And then thinking about the rocket side of things, let's just use the Last Wish comparison again. We have, it's slipping me right now, Apex Predator. It came back to me.
Yep.
Apex Predator from Last Wish, which was immediately launched to the forefront in regards to the rocket meta that it was in at the time. And then now Hezen's Vengeance has as well. So were you able to find the archetype for Hezen's?
Yes. Yep, it is indeed an aggressive frame.
Gotcha. So what are your thoughts, Spartan, on this weapon rework? Are there any that kind of stand out to you?
Well, the only two that I actually have the patterns for so far are the shotgun and obviously, so Found Verdict and the hand cannon. That just
Fatebringer.
completely left my mind. Yes, that one.
Good old.
Which both of which are great. You know, obviously aggressive frame shotguns aren't quote unquote the meta in PvP right now, but I still love the gun. The models are great. Yeah, I think so far from what I've seen, a lot of the perks that they've added have like you said, sort of brought some new life into some of these weapons. Like Praetus is a great example where previously nobody really used it for anything because, you know, if you were going to use a rapid fire in PvE, you would probably be using the Supremacy. Or and now, you know, Praetus is on top of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
So, and same goes for Hezens. You know, you would use Apex Predator before. Hezens was sort of just kind of there, and nobody ever really used it for anything. So, yeah, I think the reworks have been good. The only thing I don't like is that I have to grind for a time lost Fatebringer again. But it's a great raid, so it's not that bad.
And let's be honest, we didn't have to work too hard for our time lost Fatebringer back in the day.
Yeah, that's fair.
May or may not have had quite a few Templar kills on Funny Gun Weekend when all the crafting was happening. So we don't talk too much about that, but just don't look at our raid report and how many times we killed the Templar during that weekend. So, but yeah, if you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, it's time to go back into Vaulted Glass, I would encourage you, get in there. For the time being, Lord of Wolves is still really, really strong, and so if you have the ability to use it, especially on Templar, get in there, get your surges matched up. Hip fire that thing straight into Templar's ugly face and should be dead within seconds. So it is an impressively fast kill. And yeah, get in there, get in the vault, and I enjoy it. I love Vaulted Glass. Fun little story to wrap up this segment. When my wife Heather, I was trying to convince her to play and, play Destiny, and she was kind of in this place where it's like, I don't know if I want to. Hadn't really played an FPS game before, things of that sort. We used to come in to, it was Season of the Splicer, so it was when Vaulted Glass came out when I convinced her to play, and she used to come in, but at the time, how the leveling worked for the raids, there was no bringing people up. So there was no fire team power or anything of that sort. So she was powerful enough for the first few weeks as we were going that she could do damage and actually help out in the early encounters. But how it worked back then was as you went through each encounter, it raised up by X amount. So it could have been like 5 power or something of that sort. So by the time we would hit Gatekeepers and we would hit Atheon, she couldn't do damage to any of the enemies. They were just completely immune to her. And so it was always interesting with the Atheon teleport mechanic. She would hide. She would try to do everything in her power not to get taken. But if she did, she just kind of had to run for her life because she'd be one-tapped by any enemy. So that was very, very good memories of doing that, laughing and getting her, if we could 5-man it and get her the clear, she'd get the loot from it. So it was the fastest way to get her up to power. So, well, yeah, that's our thoughts on Vaulted Glass and the rework there for the weapon. We're going to take one more break, and then we'll come back and talk about the Trials rework. Quick thoughts on that after one Trials weekend, and we'll have a good discussion there on site at the Lighthouse. All right, welcome back one last time. Tonight we're going to talk about the Trials of Osiris rework. Trials has found new life for now, at least. Our thoughts on that, and Spartan, I thought it might be a good way to start out this section just to discuss what actually happened. What are the reworks that took place, and what do you what do you think about these changes from a high level, as someone who does enjoy the PvP side of things? What, break it down for us.
Yeah, so I'll just briefly go over. Trials used to have, I think, 4 passages. The one that most people used or might be familiar with is the Mercy passage, where if you lose, you can lose 2 matches and still have a flawless card. What they did is basically a total rework, changed a whole lot about it. Now there are 2 passages, and the way I've heard them described is the first one is called the Trials passage, and You can essentially think of it like playing Iron Banner. You play with clanmates and you get more loot, but you don't get a chance at an adept. Whereas the Lighthouse Passage, which is the other one, just have to get 7 wins on the card. So it doesn't matter how many times you lose. As long as you get 7 wins on the card, you can go to the Lighthouse and you get an adept weapon. Now, the longer streak of wins you have during those 7 wins, so say you win 4, lose a couple, win 3 more, you would have a win streak of 4 for the week, and that win streak determines extra loot. So if the longer your win streak, the more extra loot you get, essentially. And so far as my thoughts on it go, I think it's been great. I've always thought for a while that if they really want to improve the Trials population numbers, that they have to make the adepts easier to get, because prior to this, I've been flawless a few times, but not every single weekend, not even close. And there was just, too easy to get into a match where you just get crushed, because there's always a bigger fish in the pond, right? So I think not requiring 7 wins in a row without any losses in order to get an adept is great for the people who don't just live and breathe PvP in this game.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that sentiment. I think the rework, and obviously these are way too early opinions on this as well, just like our episode Heresy opinions. But I think the fact that we sit here and talk about giving incentive, right? It's the incentive, it's the feeling of respect of your time, of saying like, hey, I'm logging into the game. Trials was such a novel thing back in D1 when they kind of cooked this up originally and said, hey, we're going to do this new game mode that no one's seen before, and it's a fresh thought. It was fresh on that side. But over time, just like every game, the top of the top begin to optimize in such a way that it really disincentivizes people from putting a lot of time and effort into A, getting better, or B, just not feeling that their time is respected. And so Trials, even though it is the ultimate like high risk, high reward type situation, it does not feel good to get 6 wins and then lose on the 7th over and over and over again. Now, if you're playing against people or you're playing with people that maybe they are, people and see them on the other side, and it's like, okay, it's a game 6 for both of us. This is our Lighthouse game going in. I can see the appeal on that. But I think that, like what you just said, you're respecting people's time and you're trying to open it up to a wider audience, because you have to have a healthy player pool for everyone to feel like, I want to go do this. I want to go engage with this game mode. So this weekend, I don't have the exact numbers. You could look that up if you wanted to. That information's online. But it seemed like this weekend was one of the most healthy Trials weekends as far as player population, as far as I didn't hear a whole lot about cheaters this weekend. I'm sure there were. I'm sure they were abundant. But I'm not necessarily in games that are gonna play against that and do that. So from my perspective, I won. I lost a couple of games when I first hopped on, but they were close. I won 3 games straight. I was hoping I could get that 4th win. I did not. I got stomped. Immediately won 3 more games in a row. So I was at 6 wins on my card. Got stomped again, and then I ended up winning another game after 2 or 3 losses, something of that sort. And so I was able to make it to the Lighthouse. So did I go flawless? No, absolutely not. Have I got flawless? Yes, I've been flawless 10 times in the game. And so as a PvE main, I feel like I find ways to creatively, hold my own, but I don't, by no means do I do this very often, things of that sort. I would encourage you, if you are like me and you say, hey, I could start on Friday, play a few games, get a win or 2, and then if you need to peel off of it, you need to back away from it, that's fine, do that. And then, but between Friday and reset on Tuesday, you could accumulate the 7 wins. I would encourage everyone to log in and do that, because the loot is great. And that's the other piece about it. They've reworked some of the things. Spartan, what are your thoughts on the new loot that's coming out and some of the refreshed loot that's come in?
Yeah. Exalted Truth, rejuvenated version of the hand cannon, new perks and stuff. I got one of those this last weekend. That's what the weapon was. Looking pretty good. I'm looking forward to whenever the sniper drops, new sniper. We'll see how that weekend goes.
That one called Keen
yeah,
Thistle?
overall, yeah, I believe so. It's an aggressive frame, but it's got a really low zoom scope, which people tend to like in PvP.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I think it's great. I like you mentioned a couple times, the respecting your time. And I like with the new card setup that there are still benefits to going flawless. It actually changes your card. It prevents you from resetting it, and it renames it to like a flawless lighthouse passage, which is kind of cool. And it makes it much more likely for adept weapons to drop on wins after that. So I appreciate that they still give you benefits, but that you can go in with a 3-win streak on your card and still get an adept. And to put it into perspective, the previous Trials weekend had 6,000 players. This last weekend had 200. So hopefully it will not stay to that level, but I hope it stays in the 6 figures.
Yeah.
For player count, because that helps a lot, to avoid, for one, to avoid cheaters, and to also not play the same people over and over.
Yeah, that's true.
You sort of, it's healthier for the game to have more variety.
I would agree.
So,
I think they have an opportunity here. So they immediately went off a great Trials weekend. They got a lot of data. They've got a lot of positive sentiment out there. Now they're in Iron Banner. Do you know, is Iron Banner 2 weeks this episode, like it was last time?
I don't know for sure. I think it is.
Okay.
But I don't know for sure.
So my closing thoughts on this is let's take the W. Let's go from Iron Banner, allow, really dive deep, figure out what worked, what didn't work. Don't shake up too much, but come in with hot loot the next time. My suggestion would be double Saint reputation next week, the next Trials week that comes up, and just double it up, maybe even with a double Crucible XP, and just let's do this thing. Like, let's really solidify, hey, Trials is back with a vengeance. We're playing this. Maybe Jav 4, some great map that plays really well, and just, hey, we need these wins right now. For the Crucible side of things, buddy up with the PvP content creators that are going in there. And then the final thing I want to say is I think it's been cool that there's a new meta with the content creators and the people who are at top of the top, where when they get these flawless cards like you were referencing, they're getting these enormous win streaks. And they are like, that is a drive for them to say, hey, how much... like, how far can you go and how big of a win streak can you come? Some of these guys had like 250 wins in a row. And I'm like, okay, this is insane. So if they can keep that energy, I think they got a winning formula, at least in the short term. And then they just got to keep the loot up and just keep pouring it on us. So I'm going to append here at the end of this video. I took a clip of me opening the chest here at the lighthouse, just so you get a frame of reference for what that looks like. And so you'll see that here pop up in just a moment.
Those you have triumphed over will look to your example. Fight, win, and fight again. This is your duty.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Tower Talk. Thank you, Spartan, for hanging in there through all the technical difficulties. And thank you for sticking around to the very end. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, comment below your thoughts on episode Heresy, the Trials rework, Vaulted Glass weapons getting their rework. What are you enjoying so far in the world of Destiny? And until next time, be well.